What's up, you guys? I'm back. So if you haven't heard from me in a while, it's because I've been pretty busy with my life and everything. But I recorded this video roughly summer of last year, and I wanted to give back to you guys by actually finishing and editing the entire video. So here goes. I wrote this script back in 2025, by the way. Just a little warning, it's cringy and I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote it. But I'll be reading over it anyways, since I can't write another script. My brain is absolutely fried. In the summer of 2025, I joined an SMP. I was expecting nothing except to maybe have a little fun and build some projects. Even though I'm absolute garbage at the game itself, I decided to at least try to meet new people since the server was being hosted with a couple of friends I already knew. Now, this server was initially a 30-person server, but it recently expanded to have over 60 people. The owner, Kiriko, was the one who invited me in. He's the one who got me in there, even though I absolutely knew no one in the server. Anyway, back to the topic. So, what do I mean when I say ultimate farm? Well, obviously, given my already lacking Minecraft knowledge, I couldn't build an advanced redstone farm. However, I had sheer willpower. So, I decided to farm for fun and see how big the farm would get. Well, here's how it actually played out. Upon joining the server, we all jumped around and danced at spawn for a bit while waiting for Kiriko to start the server. A few people were offline at the time, so they missed out on the opening ceremony. Fast forward like 15 minutes and the chaos begins. He releases the floodgates and everyone goes their separate ways, except for one person, me. I was already lost because I had no idea who the other people in this server were, and I only knew the owner, who had already left with his pre-formed alliance. So, while everyone left during the grace period to gather resources, I sat there confused and dumbstruck. I eventually headed in a different direction than everyone else was going and tried to individually make my own progress. I barely did on the first day. One of the only remarkable things I remember happening was I was originally trying to speedrun the game with my zero knowledge at the time, and I got disheartened when I forgot it was on hard mode, and so I immediately died to lava. On the second day, after running around for a while, I met the alliance of Unripes and Kiriko, which I realized I should have allied with them sooner. They quickly took me in like I was a toddler in need of a parent, and this was the beginning of everything that went down. We traveled to their base, and Unripes, though being a competitive player, decided that he was going to build a cherry blossom house on top of this hill. Now, I had no idea why he was doing this since he was more PvP oriented, and I thought he was going to immediately grind netherite and lock in so that he would be the strongest player on the server. However, I just didn't question it. I let him build his house and went with the flow. Soon after deciding something for myself, maybe I should build my own personal area where I could put my belongings in. At the time of the server's creation, no one had done anything reputation worthy until Unripes decided to go on a killing spree. Unbeknownst to me, he had already been recruited as a hitman for whoever had someone they wanted killed. I was, of course, offline at the time that all of these negotiations were happening, so I had no clue that he was going around antagonizing every other member of the server. I was completely oblivious, and I only decided that he'd be a good partner since I was just casually playing on the server at the time. About a day after we set up our house, I went down a hole that Unripes had made, only to find an area cleared out, initially for a small sugarcane farm. I got to thinking, if they had this area underground, couldn't I technically use it? Usually, griefers would work above ground at the main compound where all the chests were. Would they look down here? I decided they wouldn't, so I began to build. Now, you have to know my lore, my mentality going into bases. I don't know how it works, but I'm somehow obsessed with building underground farms. Back in a school SMP in 7th grade, I built a small underground farm, but I was inexperienced and ended up leaking the location to everyone. It was in a small mountain near spawn, so they swiftly came to where I was. And after I went offline, they blew up the farm and trapped me in obsidian. It traumatized me because I had no idea how to get out at the time, and I was farming my wheat without a clue of what was going on. So I've only ever built one underground farm since then, which was in yet another server. Back to the present. I was unsure if someone was going to grief my farm, since it had happened before. Fortunately, after making the first layer of the farm, everything seemed to be going well. My farm had a path running through the middle, ladders going down to the next layers, and water sources on each side. It was a basic design, but I figured that I shouldn't put much effort into it. It was probably going to be a small project anyway. Allegedly. It was really supposed to be. It really was. So 5 layers later, I got to thinking, it's no longer a small project. The weed at the top literally grew back as the ones on the 3rd layer was still growing. It was a stretch, but I figured I might just keep on going, since it was kind of popping off or at least expanding at a faster pace than I thought it would. Now during this time, people on the server were starting to beef with each other, and my partner was, as you might remember, the ultimate hitman of the whole server. He was reigning the server as the chaos causer. This wouldn't have been a problem since I was technically just chilling with them, and I thought they were still allied with Kiriko as well. But oh man, how oblivious I was to the fact that connections would completely destroy my experience. Well, it turns out that every single person on the server had turned against them, and me as a result, since I was technically allied with them. I was completely shocked. When I went to spawn, after a few days of just farming, I had to be briefed on the situation. At that point, I already knew something was up. I would have had to been blind if I didn't. When I went up to the surface to grab some wood at one point, I glanced over at our base, and it was in shambles. I stared at the sign that someone had placed, which said, "You had it coming. Eternal." I didn't know anyone on the server by the name of Eternal, so I assumed it was a team. After a quick check on the Discord server, it was obvious who the leader of Eternal was, Kiriko, and I was confused why he would grief the base until I remembered Unripes' involvement in all the drama, and so I figured he must have been allied with someone that Unripes was beefing against. Well, the underground area was left untouched, so I just continued farming. Apparently, I couldn't care less. My thought process was that I figured that if they had already griefed the base, they probably weren't going to check back on it, and even if they did, I wasn't doing anything against the law. I hadn't killed anyone on the server either, except for Law, which was by accident, so I assumed everything was fine. The farm kept expanding. 10 layers, 15, and finally I hit bedrock. I made a bubble elevator both ways, and it was finished. All 50 odd layers were done. I breathed a sigh of relief. At this point, a couple people knew about it. The first was Unripes, of course, but for safety reasons, they had to move away from the original compound after the raid. The second was Sam Boxer, or Sam, the server mod. He would teleport to people at random to keep the server free of hackers and whatnot. He found out by teleporting to me around 6 p.m. of a day I don't remember, after which he left me alone and went to go do something else. Around 2 hours later, he teleported back to me, and I was still working on the farm. He was surprised and definitely recognized my dedication, so he gave me his support throughout the project. And in the script, that's what I wrote, but that's only because at the time, I was unsure if the next season of the SMP would go on, and if the owner would see what he had done. But now, it's too late, and I don't think he cares anymore. So, what Sam actually did the entire time is he would duplicate the layers and give me dirt to build the other ones that I didn't have enough dirt for. This is how we expanded it from bedrock layer all the way up to building height limit. He basically sped the production process up 50 times, and without him, the video would not be as dramatic as it was. The third person to find out about the farm was a newer member by the name of Soy Sauce. Soy was a great help and was able to expand the farm above ground by placing markers where the floors should have been. He was also a factor that was introduced into our build at a later time, but he still helped with it. I have no idea why. Honestly, this is where the script ends, so here's new me. From the planning to the execution, finally the involvement of over 3 other players on an SMP where I thought that nobody would talk to me in the first place, let alone ally with me to build a farm. I was shocked at how far my own project could really come. Even though this happened around a year ago, the lasting impact and fun that I had with all the server members still stings my heart to think about. And when I look back at how long we spent together on the project, it reminds me of how far I've come as a person. From fooling around on that SMP to having to leave due to being busy in my personal life, I am so grateful that I had the opportunity to participate in it. Thank you guys for watching. I know this was short and not that dramatic, but my script wasn't really intentionally dramatic. So if it doesn't meet your expectations, I'm sorry. This is my first time actually narrating a story in Minecraft. I will try to see if I can do some more stuff over the summer for you guys, but I can't make any promises. This is really fun. Thank you for watching.